two community builders dedicated to keeping storytelling alive as an act of cultural care. And that's where Amanda Strong and Rose-Ann Tisserand come in.
But we also are in the process of preserving this legacy um, of like what is animation. And today I have a bunch of questions that are just revolving around you guys and your experiences with uh, uh, your community building, your relationships with the art form. I think there's cartoons, but then I also think there's art, and you two ladies are really um, an exemplary model of what it is that you're doing. And you're, as I mentioned it to Rose-Ann, uh, you're moving mountains. You're really moving mountains in your fields. And if you don't mind, can we start? Would you be comfortable starting? Yeah. Okay. So I'm sitting here with Rose-Ann Tisserand of ACE Canada, the ACE program, and also Amanda Strong of Spotted Fawn Production, who also put on the Shifting Farm Symposium, which I was able to attend, which was the first Indigenous animation film festival. Can you explain a little bit about what that was like, Amanda?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a film festival. I think it was more just like a symposium and I don't even know if it's the first. I would just say, yeah, like my goal with Shifting Forms was to bring together Indigenous artists working within animation, moving image arts, interactive spaces, and works to have conversation, talk about things, and also have like accessibility for this content, and as well as the conversations we're having around, yeah, accessibility, funding, what it, like autonomy, ownership of our stories, like all those sorts of things. So we created sort of a 3-day event that had a screening, but I would say the bigger part was the panels and the bringing together of artists to share, a free event for everybody to come and learn. So the purpose was we're all the voices on stage, and that we're communicating, we're Indigenous artists, or tied to the arts in some way. But the audience didn't have to be it wasn't just for Indigenous people, it's for allies and friends who wanted to learn more, a space where we can also see that we actually do have a lot of talent and there are a lot of us creating content out there. Because I hear that a lot, like, oh, I don't know of any Indigenous this or Indigenous that, and I just always feel like that's not true. I know there's a wealth of talent everywhere in any art form from Indigenous creators, and that's part of the work I like to do, is to bring that to the forefront and make people, especially non-Indigenous people, aware that we exist, we're doing the work, we just haven't had the platforms for a long time.
Mhm. Roseanne, what inspired you to start ACE?
It was probably about 10, 12 years ago. There was always discussion that women weren't being represented in key creative roles, writer, director, art director, animation director. But at that time, it was always, oh, sure, but no one had the numbers. So I think there was a real movement about 8, 10 years ago to count. And when everybody finally counted, they went, oh, snap. Yep, that's really not great. We did it in Vancouver. We started with Drawn Together Vancouver, which was a lot of the key women in Vancouver who wanted to just count and make a change. And it was, Kirsten Newlands, Tina Chow, Heather Puttock. It was all of the, Jen McCarran. And we just wanted to count. And when we did, I think our numbers were, we had one director and 2 art directors in all of Vancouver in animation. And we decided that was not acceptable. We know the talent exists. We know more women go to art school than men. Where are they? No one, you don't go to art school to not get to that dream goal that you always had. So our goal was to find these women and these non-binary candidates, these underrepresented genders, and say, we can help you do that. Like, we can show you the way. And we did. We started with small scale percentages of trying to advance it. Our first ACE program was 5 women, 5 underrepresented genders. And they made a short film. The goal is to just advance those people into the categories that make that elevate creative voices to having a say in our industry. So it was a small group of us that just decided to make a change in Vancouver and in BC, and then it's grown across Canada. We're now across Canada. So for me, it was just, how is this possible? Like, no, agreed with, exactly what Amanda said. There are definitely all kinds of these people who went to school, who have these dreams. Where are they? Why do we lose them? Why do we lose them? Or why can't we find them? So that was really the intention of starting ACE.
You're in your 5th year now. You're heading into your 5th year. That's pretty
5th
cool.
cohort.
Cohort,
Every
right. How many years
film,
has it been then?
it's been 8 years. So 4 cohorts. It takes about 2 years for each cohort. And it's a pretty intensive program. People have jobs. It isn't a paid program, but no, there is nothing required to join the program. People just apply, and we try and give as much knowledge as we can to as many as we can. Everybody gets their own mentor. We have workshops on soft skills, which are really important. How to have difficult conversations, how to negotiate a contract, how to hire, how to fire, now that you've been elevated to these other roles, how to find your voice, how to hear your voice, how to use your voice. I'm making mistakes. Women inherently, in particular women, we're not great at standing up and going, I can do that. We have to really feel we almost know everything before we can do that. And that is our downfall. We don't want to make mistakes. Whereas I think, men are much more confident to say, oh, I'll give it a try. I got some of those skills. We say, oh no, we need all of those skills so that we don't make mistakes and we don't look like we've made mistakes. So that's really our goal, is to just make sure, people who are in the program hear their voice and make mistakes, learn it's okay, see other people in the industry that, if some of them have never seen a female animation director or a underrepresented gender, male, underrepresented animation director, and all of a sudden they start to see them, or they become them, which is really great. They become that animation director, that art director. So yeah.
I do know a lot of the women that have gone through the program, and they always seem to come out the other side much more confident in their own skills and abilities. So it's obviously working. I wanted to ask you to a little bit about maybe the history of like your stories, like what's the first story that you remember being told, or what's the story that really changed your life or put you on the path of making cartoons? Like, would you remember, or would you know that one?
I just always loved cartoons.
Yeah.
Growing up. So there wasn't a moment. It was just a part of what I did. And then my partner coincidentally was in the same, had the same interests. So we just continued and went from there. I love that the whole goal of it, sorry, I thought I turned it. The whole goal of it is things you can't do in live action, that it's about imagination, and it's about taking things as far as you can. So telling stories that way is very profound and authentic. So
do you find that because like there's cartoons, and then there's like Amanda, you make stop motion, and I would call that an art form. I think making cartoons is also an art form, but I think that you get to play with stories in such a deeper way. Do you find that there's a difference in the medium that way, like stop motion versus computer?
So yeah, no, with the animation, I wasn't really into it. I wouldn't say I didn't like watching it or taking in content, but it wasn't like a path that I thought I was going on. It sort of, I guess, came to me through studying other programs. So my primary training is in photography and illustration, which was sort of a late decision at the end of high school. And again, I was sort of going in a very different direction before that. But yeah, it was the passing of my grandfather, and I inherited all these cameras, which were like, old film negatives and processing and medium format negatives and stuff. So I kind of just, something told me to grab all these physical cameras, and that sort of started this like arbitrary path of photography. And I was very fortunate to, at Sheridan College, take the film, like the photography program where we were still using film. It was the last year before everything shifted to digital. But that's really where I think my foundation in stop motion comes from, because it's centered on photography. It's centered on still image that's captured by like a, it's in our case a lot of times we're using a single lens reflex camera. We're not using like a video camera. So it's like everything in telling these stories, especially specifically in stop motion, is captured one frame at a time. And that's essentially the principles of photography. So I think that's why I've always gravitated towards this type of animation, was from that original training. But I didn't really want to be a photographer specifically, or an illustrator specifically, but all those trainings sort of helped give me a sense of artistic training, as well as like collaboration and understanding how those sort of mediums and different art forms worked. Because that's the really amazing thing about stop motion, is it brings together like every art form, from, because you still have to go through all the process of design and um, whether that's digital or on paper. You have to envision everything. You have to create all your concept art just as you would in 2D animation or 3D animation. But then you have this extra step of building everything physically with material, and the like care of moving physical, practical objects one frame at a time as well. But yeah, like as a Indigenous person, I think when I started in photography, I was always interested in creating worlds and like imagery that wasn't just sort of what already existed in front of us. It was always about like imagining a character, a world, or a space, or elaborating on something visually. And I think I just became really fascinated with like moving image and telling stories beyond one still frame. And all those things sort of connected with stop motion. And I think, as you've said, like it can be used, or all forms of animation can be used to tell like cartoon like storytelling or younger audience content. But my interest has always been in, like, yeah, it's an art form, it's cinema. It's not just cartoons. It's not just to sort of be on TV for programming in that way. It's a space to tell like important stories, or cultural stories, or stories that can make change. And I'm not saying some cartoons actually do that work as well. But yeah, so it's always been like a really fascinating thing. I just never thought as a younger person that that's what I would be doing or able to do. So it's been quite a journey to learn all these years that it is possible. And I think that's the hardest part. And back to what Roseanne is saying, when we talk about, I was told in school, 2% of who graduates from all these programs, whether it's photography, illustration, probably film and animation, the same, 2% end up in jobs. And I don't know whether that's like specific to gender, but it really shows you how few people go through these programs who obviously had that intention and passion, don't end up in that career path, which is really sad. So I think, yeah, there's a lot to be said about what Roseanne's saying as well, is just like the problem isn't the talent or that people don't want to do these things. It's what's available, and like who controls the industry or the jobs, and those systems in place, and like who do they prioritize hiring, and what stories do they prioritize giving funding to or making space for. And I think that's where things are changing now, is there's more people creating programs and like work and content that challenges systems that for so long have not let many voices or gender within those spaces. And that's what's, I think, changing, which is awesome.
Yeah, the obstacles, they're like, you two are removing obstacles. I guess I am too. I am
Yeah,
also, yeah,
I mean, it's amazing.
need to include myself on that one.
Building on top of what Amanda's saying, I mean, for us, it was We wanted to elevate these people into these amazing roles. We wanted to get IP made by them. And the best part of it was that it was their stories. So we started to hear trans stories. We started to hear LGBT. We heard all these amazing stories that we were like, wow, that's what's missing. You know, if you were to go back now and think how many men directed Barbie films, when you think about it now, it's like, wow, that's kind of not, I you know, did that work? I don't know. So the authenticity that's come out of a lot of that is really great. And hearing these stories, and you're like, those stories wouldn't have been told like through Ace. It's 4 films, but the stories of those 4 films would have been never been told if they wouldn't have the safe, structured space to be vulnerable and tell those stories.
To me, that's diversity.
Yeah.
That's absolutely diversity. And I was given that gift when I got to travel with Toon Boom around with to studios around the world, and it opened me up to so much more culture than I had ever seen in my life. And I kept thinking, oh, the stories here are so different from what we have back home. And why don't we see, like, why isn't there more cross-pollination between the stories that I'm learning about in Malaysia or Indonesia or India, even in Canada, and especially because Canada is by default, it's very multicultural. It's so lovely, but I think that there's so much more space and room for these stories. And one of the other questions I wanted to ask you too are, when I started this industry, everything to me was handed down verbally. There was no instructions. Every TV show had a Bible, which had all the rules of the shows. But it was almost like ghost stories, like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And there was no reason behind it. It was just, don't do that. That'll break something. We don't know what it's going to break, but 2 years ago it broke something, and we don't do that anymore. And so it felt like the instructions of how to work in a studio or on a cartoon didn't exist. And I think that's what Eat Your Peas is trying to bring forward, is like, how do you actually work on a pipeline? How do you work on a production? How do you work together on a team when everybody's looking at these unique points along the way, and like cover each other, because that's kind of what teamwork does. So I was really curious as to, like, Roseanne, I know that you're so at the forefront of animation mentorship. But Amanda, how much mentorship was like, did you have getting into the space? Because especially if it's not one that you saw yourself entering, you got here somehow, and you learned all this process. And stop motion is not an easy art form, especially when you start to talk about cameras. Because are you also processing the film? Or
No, no,
you
we're not
process it, you
shooting.
send it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we're using digital.
Okay. You mentioned medium format, so I didn't know you could.
I did that when I was in school.
Okay. But yeah, so how much mentorship would you say has guided you on this path to, like, get you here? And
I've had some mentors along the way for sure. When I first started out, I had a mentor, Terrell Calder, who's a filmmaker in Toronto, and I've had, like, I'm still learning even in my current project right now, like, it's 1,000,000% learning every day. Every day is just problem solving and finding solutions. So I think that, like, actually never ends. I honestly threw myself in with knowing very little. I was rejected from film school, and I didn't go to school for animation. So a lot of my path has just been like trying things and making mistakes and failing, but not giving up and just being like, okay, well, those parts didn't work very well on that one, and what can I do better next time? And like, for me, it's also about I'm all about building a team. So it's like, what people will help make what I want to do possible. Like, that's like, it's like a whole art form, is like who you put together to equal an outcome, right? Like if this person and talent, it's like their energy and like their ability artistically. If you put this with, it's like weaving things together to envision like this is visually possible, or this is creatively possible with all of these amazing people together. Like that's a lot of the work I do, is like dreaming up who is the right person for this, or who's gonna like
Yeah.
elevate these aspects of production, not just for myself, but the team we're building, right? So yeah, I think I've been very fortunate to, in every project, like always looking to level up and work with people who can offer the creative challenge I'm trying to like go to a next level with, or something. It's like, well, I want to try that. Like, I want to figure out talking with a stop motion puppet, and I don't want, replaceable lips or face replacements. How am I going to do that? I had to find the right puppet makers and technicians who can build the right head mechanism so that that was possible in my work. It's things like that where you have a dream of like what you're trying to achieve that serves your story first and foremost, but also the art form. And if you don't have that skill set or access to that, how can you get access to that? And so I would say, and those people become your mentors because they have knowledge share that is not part of our toolkit yet. But I think like mentorship has always been a big part of what I want to offer within my space, or yeah, doing things like shifting forms. I used to live in Toronto. I would do a lot of like youth work or community-based projects, whether it was in visual arts or animation or film. I've always had like, I always kind of go in and out of like making my own projects, but then working with community or workshops or teaching younger people. And then also at my studio, similar to ACE and other programs like that, the whole goal is to have space for Indigenous artists, for women, for people of color, the LGBTQ community, so that our primary artists that are working on our productions are from underrepresented voices or spectrums of gender, etc. And that's who I prioritize in our space. And then we will have people who are sort of from the industry but who understand the work we're doing. Like that, my whole thing is like, no matter who you are, no matter what level you're at, leave your ego at the door. You're coming into a space where this is not about industry, it's not about money, it's about the stories we're telling. We're honoring whichever story we're working on. There's like uh, if it's not my own story and we're working with a writer or a collaborator, that's who we're honoring at the core, that community, their elders, that writer. So that's what everybody's walking into and supporting and understanding and respecting. So that's sort of rule one, is like that supersedes everything process. That only like people have to be aware of that to come into that space and be like that's what we're serving, that's what we're trying to do together. But that a lot of people want to actually work on important work or cultural work that they feel like, if most of their jobs are like industry or these big huge studios where they're just churning out machine work, and they don't always feel good about that work, even though they might be paid better and it's a more stable job. So you actually learn how many people want to support. I would have never dreamed that all these people want to support my small studio in Vancouver who's telling Indigenous stories, but how important that actually is to a lot of people, and how much they would be like, I would choose to work on this over some bigger industry project. Not everybody, but like it's been amazing to see that when the work has an impact and when the work is meaningful, a lot of people want to be a part of that. It's like Molly of Denali at Atomic. It's like that show, even though it was within, a sort of bureaucratic, hierarchical animation system, that show had meaning. That show had depth that a lot of people cared about and felt good about working on.
Everybody that I know that worked on that show loved working on that show. Yeah, they were really, really proud of that one. And I know it was doing really well. It was on for, I think, did it go through 5 seasons?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was incredible. It's an incredible run for a show like that.
Mm.
where do you think are the roadblocks for your future, for the future of the communities that you're both building? Obviously, funding is is going to be on that list, very high up, I'm sure. But beyond that, do you see any of the obstacles that you're trying to navigate right now?
I think from my perspective, it's that the animation community on the whole is in a bit of a downturn, a large downturn. And I think, where even with ACE4, which is, 2 years ago when we started, there was still room. People were clamoring for, female directors, art directors. And within that 2 year space, there's simply there are no jobs. So it's having to switch a little bit what we're doing. It's still obviously, we're just getting ready to possibly look at ACE5 and what does that mean? But I was just at Ottawa, the animation festival, and all of the studios I talked to still felt what we were doing was really important work, and that to keep it the way it was, making a short film, and that it mattered to the community and they wanted to see it continue, because we work to service the community and the individuals to this synergy of what's wanted and needed and what we can do to help these artists. So they felt it was still really important, whether it's launching an independent career, whether it's launching a voice of a film, that's important. They still feel it matters a lot. So that's the challenge right now, is I think trying to figure out where do we have to adjust, possibly, potentially, for the industry and where we're going on the whole, the industry on the whole. We're still doing what we're doing for underrepresented genders. That's absolutely clear, but it's just where that fits into the world of jobs, as there are fewer jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that we see so many students that are looking for work, and I would agree with this. Like, I don't know if I want to make promises at this time, but like, this is something that we really hope that we can create communities where they're putting their stories out there. To me, that's the most important part of being I've never labeled myself as a filmmaker or a cartoon maker, I guess, even like an animator, just because I'm more on the technical side of things, and I'm more interested in like the rigs of stop motion, like making the puppets themselves, than maybe making them move. That's always been my fascinations. But if HPs can do anything, we were really hoping to give people those tools so that they can create the stories with less of those obstacles, less of the figuring out of the process. Do you two feel like you've been able to do that? Like, has that been something that you've seen the positive benefits from? Like, have you been able to really see the success? I think you were mentioning, Amanda, that you've seen a bunch of spin-off creations from the people that you've worked with.
I don't know how to like answer. I would say it's probably more for those people to answer. I can't say specifically how I've inspired others. I hope I've inspired others. I do have a lot of people who, just from watching the work, or now I'm teaching at Emily Carr in animation, so I'm teaching a stop motion course and 4th year 2D experimental. So I do have a lot of students who will be like, "Oh, I'm really inspired by your work," or different screenings or events. There's people who will come up and say like just how they've seen our work and have been impacted by that, or like have wanted to do stop motion. Like whenever someone tells me they've like want to do stop motion because they've seen our work, like that means the world to me. In terms of people who've like actually worked at the studio, again, I hope I've helped people or inspired people to do their own work. And yeah, we've had many artists come through and work on their own, and maybe not so much animations yet, because it's really hard to go through that process of funding. And a lot of students have come through our studio, so they've done like a film at Emily Carr previously or whatever. We have a lot of like illustrators and industrial designers and other types of students and artists who go on to do amazing things with their stuff as well.
I do think it's hard to see going back, like, and like looking back, and I can speak from my career, it's not something that I anticipated seeing, but when I started to step out on this new path of like teaching at higher levels, what I noticed was I started to feel like a grandma in the industry. It's like the tools that I created back at studios, they still use them. They still rely on them. And again, it's like that funny word of mouth instructions that is happening for those tools. Nobody really knew what they were, why things were color coded the way they were. But these were the systems that we set up with our teams, and then we left, and then they were still very much relying on them. But going off and creating like completely new shows with them, and I think that's kind of what inspired me to ask that question a little bit more. And maybe Roseanne, you probably see that more directly.
We do. I mean, I think we do, but that's the goal of the program. I mean, and we're looking for mid-level industry animation professionals, or something that is transferable. So it can be an illustrator that can come into the program, and we teach them how to take that the next level. But certainly for us, we spend a lot of time connecting. So we have a lot of workshops with filmmakers, or with all kinds of like funders and all kinds of people to help them get the resources that they can to continue and move on into things after the program. We've had one candidate from one of the films, the writer, created an AI robot to help children deal with anxiety. So she won a TEDx, and she's now living in San Francisco. We've had another one do a graphic novel, the writer of another film go on and do a graphic novel. So we've seen what can happen is the experience, the confidence to go through it, and then the connecting. We're very focused on connecting. Whenever we have events, we make sure that each individual connects on LinkedIn, chats with these people, and we have them talk about goals or what they can do. We take them like ACE3 we took to Annecy last year. We'll be taking ACE4 to Annecy next year, and we set up a screening of their film. We do a mingling and a networking event and training. So again, we walk them through, what does that feel like? I'm walking in a room with a bunch of people I don't know. How do I make small talk? What do I talk about now that I've done this film? How do I sit in this world now that I've done this film? So all of these things are goals for to gain confidence, to just build your network. And once they start to do that, it's amazing how everybody wants to say hi. Everybody wants to get to know them, wants to continue being, hey, let's chat. Hey, I met you at, let's keep the conversation going. So those are the tools that we've seen that have become really clear for us to help them move on. It's not only this, it's that great. You're going to learn more than that. And those are the things that are going to help you in the world. Go make another film, go make another a toy, go make whatever it is. Those are the things that, we've been fairly successful with people continuing in the program, and it's really embedded into the program to make sure that we can keep that feeling and that intention going for them to tell their stories however they want to tell them.
I mean, you're talking about confidence, and I think that is so integral to community building and working with artists and animators. Would you say that these are directly relating to like also building their self-esteem? Like these are like the steps and the tools that you're giving these people to start doing these things for themselves in that sense. I don't know if that's a sentence. I might edit this one.
Oh, 1,000%. We all think we gain confidence, so you can't do it till you have confidence.
Yeah.
The trick is you have to do the thing to get confidence, right? Once you see yourself doing these things, you gain confidence. And once you do them more, you realize, oh, I won't know everything. I'm just going to have to learn or figure it out, or someone will help me. Those are the biggest tools. Sitting and waiting for confidence to fall in your lap, it doesn't work.
Doesn't happen. Yeah. Action definitely comes first.
Yeah, 100%. And I think once they start to do that, that's a lot of this, what they learn in the program, that keeps them motivated. It keeps them seeing other ways to do things, going like, wow, cool, maybe I'll do that. Though that's really important in what we do, I think.
The internet, the internet, and AI and the algorithms. These are things that are really that people are really talking about right now, especially AI. I find that AI was a really big interruption to the work that we've all been doing, knowing that you're also fighting the algorithm and you're also fighting the same like AI prompts to simplify what it is that we do. And I'm really curious to hear how you've navigated that, and how you plan on navigating that, because it seems to be getting harder, but maybe it's getting easier as you've been through the process a little bit longer.
For myself, I feel like we're fortunate to work with material and physical objects, and I don't think AI hopefully will never be able to recreate that. I'm pretty, I don't want to, I'm not a huge AI person or fan or ethically, and from a lot of standpoints. I understand there's like can be tools and efficiencies that could happen from a software level that might be. I'm just not like I'm pretty no to no to AI in general. But I think because of the work we do in nature, it doesn't, like, I'm not saying it doesn't have an impact. We're aware that yeah, like, is that going to start to like change the jobs in our process, or are more people going to start to push for it, or like are people going to use AI to try to replicate a stop motion look, like where people be like, oh, well, is there even a need for all of this time and money to be put into that process? So of course there's always that fear, but all I can really do is keep our head down, and we have the stories, we have a process, and that we're going to keep doing and keep evolving and learning from. And I'm not really in control, unfortunately, of what's going to happen with AI. So that's all I can really do, is believe in the process and the work we're doing and keep our head down and keep doing it. Is it going to have, challenging impacts moving forward? Probably. But I also think there's a lot of people who are now like craving original art forms, or like pure art and cinema, and like tired of all the sort of regurgitated content and AI based, like it's missing a soul. It always will be missing a soul because it's not coming from a person. Every piece, every material, every frame that we work on is so many hands and the spirit of many people coming through. And I think like when people work on things, you feel that spirit within the work. And that's what I think a computer in general, like even if it's not AI, just software in general, or like the idea of AI, is missing those aspects. So yeah, from that level, I feel like I just tried. I'm aware it's out there. I'm aware it's a thing, and a lot of people are talking about it and working within it, but it's just not in my interest or priorities. And I just gonna keep doing the work we're doing and hope that there will always be a space for that, and fight for a space for that. Yeah.
Roseanne, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's here. The genie's out of the bottle. But I'm not meaning that it's out there, and animation's gone through changes before. I think, there was a fear it would take it completely over, especially with story and with art. And it won't. At least not for a long time. I think, again, like Amanda's saying, humanity and people and touching things and talking about things, you can feel it and see it on a screen. Certainly I use it for emails. I use it for things, but I would never replace it for, what I want or the stories I want to tell. I don't think that's possible or feasible. It was interesting because, I was speaking to someone from Women in Animation, and there's a group out there. what's also happening with AI is that because of the generative AI, when you ask it questions, obviously it learns and repopulates based on that original question. So what you see from that question, the result of that is going to be what's repopulated and made bigger. And there's a company out there, so it's the same thing as going back to the Gina Davis Foundation. It's now we're back to gender inequality, because it's mostly, the answers are mostly male, and very, very that vanilla male. Those are the images that we get. So we need to start trying to not trick it, but get in there and get different prompts and different things to make sure we're getting a stronger clarity or stronger representation of everyone that's in the world right now. So those are things that you don't think about. I never thought about it till I had met this person. I'm like, oh my goodness, wow, that's a whole other thing. AI has been around longer than we think it has. We think it's this thing now where it can do all this other stuff, but AI has actually been around for quite some time. So, but replacing artists, replacing story, yeah, that's not, it's not ideal. But I don't know how much of it's going to change things. I have no idea. I agree. I have no control. And there's always going to be someone who can do that and do a great, it's too early. I don't know.
I personally, I don't. I see it at the same level as Photoshop. We were able to retouch photos. 2D animation is different than 3D animation. For me, I'm just hoping that it's its own genre. we can give it its space, so that we can all continue to have our own.
Paper to digital, like when we were paper to digital, it's like, oh my God, and it's just, animation has a great way of reinventing itself to what's happening. So hopefully, I think that's where I think we'll go with it.
The credits are always important or probably the most important when you're making something and you're contributing and you're crediting actual people. It'll be really interesting to see what credits look like on AI films. It'll be a lot shorter, and I'm sure there are people that'll be really, really happy with that. But I think as makers, I don't know how you guys feel about staying to the end of movies, but I've always stayed to the end of movies when I go to theaters and watching everybody's names go up, and it's incredible to see that list of how many people contribute to one project. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was interesting. We're talking about even with episodic TV, because the credits now have been squashed into like 5-second blip, like you've worked 2 years on something and it's gone in 10 seconds. And we were talking to all of these things. Part of the program is to give as many opportunities as we can to learn short film, feature film, and TV, like all three of them, so that you can gain a broader perspective of all of them and balance thoughts in your own head. And it was funny because we just started talking about credits for this program. They're, oh no, it's standard is 30 seconds. And I'm like, no, a short film, or usually with a short film or a feature film, you want to make sure the people that poured their heart and soul into it are credited, and people actually want to watch that. They will sit in a theater, no one leaves, you watch the credits. It's really important to them and to you to honor all of those people who work on your film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you work so hard to put stuff out there, and like the algorithm is so different than AI. Like AI is one thing, but the algorithm is completely different. Or are you able to navigate that now when you're releasing a project?
I think it's different now. Like, I think because they have sort of shifted the algorithms to sort of not reach. I feel like before it was easier to spread word on social media, like Facebook or Instagram or whatever. I've sort of given up. I don't even care anymore. I'm just like, whatever. I'm just, it sucks. Like it's like, I don't want to battle that, or that I don't want my work to be trying to figure out algorithms. That's the last thing I want to spend my time on. So yeah, but I hear people complain about it all the time, like on all forms of art, or like just how at one point it was like easy to get followers and people interact with your posts and stuff. And now it's like the absolute opposite. And it's heartbreaking for a lot of people to have especially those who have like witnessed when it was easier and before all these algorithms were put
Mhm.
into place, where they're like, why does not as many people interact or like my stuff? And I've tried to like really I don't I'm not on social media as much. I don't use it as much. I'm just more focused on doing the work, and I'll put something out there, but I try not to take offense if it, the numbers are off, or because there's systems out there intentionally trying to do that, or to make you have to pay in order to reach more people or whatever. And so yeah, I've kind of moved away from social media as like a tool as much as it used to be personally.
Mhm.
And it's the way it is. And I don't, like I said, I don't want that to be one of my battles right now. I have
Mhm.
enough battles to figure out how to get funding and make work, and keep doing the work that we're doing. And that's where I would say I'd like to put my time. But yeah, it sucks. It's too bad that they are making it harder for people to connect online in that way.
Mhm. Brings you right back to community and how important it is to stick together.
Mhm.
I often think about this because we're on this path of teaching artists to be independent artists. I think that that's going to be a really big role moving forward, and teaching them to have a healthy relationship with the internet just sounds crazy, but it's probably more needed now than ever. But I think about that often. It's like, how do I get on top of the algorithm? How do I make sure that I'm checking the posts of the people that I want to follow? It almost comes back on me as my responsibility to stay on top of that and remember my own personal algorithm on top of the one that's always being thrown at me, based off some weird whim, of something that I Googled once, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, you must love orange juice because you looked up the ingredients once, you know. So yeah, absolutely. Um, one of the last questions that I wanted to ask you, ladies, is as we were talking a little bit more about storytelling and stories, and like the power of the communities that you're bringing forward and putting out there, and bringing people together, is really like, you're doing this because you're sharing your knowledge, you're sharing your wisdom. Um, and like you're preserving the information that you've and the experiences that have come before you. But could you please elaborate a little bit on why it's important to continue that process and to preserve all the information that you're sharing?
For me with the studio work, I try to be very conscious of making sure that I'm trying to create a really nourishing environment. And I know, it's nobody's perfect, and we've all made mistakes in our efforts to try to create safe and good spaces for learning. But yeah, that's really important to me, is to always like in our space, like a lot of people come and go, right? Like, because with artists, a lot of them have their own dreams, or like there's sort of a time where they want to go on and make their own stuff. And for me, that's really important to encourage that and support that, and hope for the best. That all I can hope is that their time at our space has helped in some way towards that, or encouraged them towards their own work, or has like helped foster skills along the way. And that's really important to me. I have been in a position where I've had people who I looked up to do the opposite with me when I was younger, and someone who was in an older position. And it's pretty heartbreaking when someone doesn't like when a mentor doesn't want you to succeed, or doesn't wish that for you. And so and I know how that feels directly. So it's always been like something I'm super conscious of, like, don't ever make someone younger or who's trying to learn feel not good about themselves, or like not feel supported. And so that's always been a goal of mine. And that comes from like, yeah, like sharing process, not being like, too protective of your process. Like a process doesn't belong to anybody, right? So I feel like it's our job to share how you do things, and like to help other people, because they don't have that insider knowledge yet. And I think of how many people shared such important information that was like completely game changing in terms of how I move forward with what I'm doing, and how useful those simple tools can be, like whether it's a spreadsheet or like just a simple suggestion, and like all those things make big difference in function and how you work. And of course you should share that with people. And I'm the same when I do workshops or when I teach at Emily Carr, or wherever. It's like I bring my actual puppets in and let them touch them and move them. I tell them exactly how we did something. It's like, oh, how did you achieve that in that shot? Well, this is what we did. And they're like, whoa. And it's like, I wish I had more of that when I was younger. But I have had that as I've been going on this journey, where there have been a lot of people who've been very generous in sharing process and how you do something. And that changes everything when you understand that you can do it too. Actually, that can change somebody's life, truly, in terms of like letting them know they can actually do this and take it in their own way. And so that's always my hope. And at Emily Carr, I'm constantly sharing, like, and breaking down all the sheets and process, and sharing my active like animatics of what we're doing in the moment, like, and that they're all so excited by that, right? Because it's like a real example of something, and it's something visceral that they can like process and digest in a way, and hopefully use that for their own work. So absolutely, that's something shifting forms. That's what that is to me. It's like sharing knowledge, empowering people to feel that they can do something, that there's enough of us out there. There's shitty people out there, but there's really, really good people out there too. So for those who are, not willing to share, or all sorts of other things, you just gotta find your good people.
Hmm. That's
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really
That
nice.
was lovely. And I mean, shifting forms was amazing. I was there for the whole weekend. It was amazing. And Herculean effort from Amanda and her team. I've done some of those event things and I'm like, wow, impressive. I mean, for me at ACE, what keeps me going is the power of potential, the power of seeing people actually figure it out themselves and go, oh, I've unlocked it myself. Because all you do is you kind of present the options, or the world, or the variables, and they have to figure, the power is in them figuring it out themselves. And because that's what they can take going forward. If you do it for them, sometimes we run into that where we have individuals, well, why don't you just tell me how to do it? And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I want you to either make mistakes or figure it out, because those mistakes you're going to learn from, and you won't work that way again, or you'll figure a lot out. So when you can see the power of that potential in people, and they light up, and then afterwards it just makes your heart glow. That's important. For me, when I talk to mentors, one of the reasons I did this, I think, is for me. When I was young and I was starting, and I wish, like, man, I wish I would have, someone could have done all of these things, or there would have been some kind of form for this. And whenever I talk to mentors, and we talk to directors in LA, we talk to people in Europe, and every time I talk about the program, they're going, why didn't I have this? Every single one of them would have loved to have had something where it's not only going to school, we need that, but something that takes them from there to a place of owning and discovering themselves and finding their voice and getting that confidence that they can take forward. Because you can get lost. It's a big business, and you can get lost. And I think one of the things that so many people in the group learn is trusting and asking for help. Oh my gosh, if there was ever a thing I could say, and I think, for all of us, for me still, I'm learning every day, like Amanda said, oh my God, I'm learning every day, but asking for help. I ask for help. I just have learned, you know, a long time ago that asking for help is the most important thing you can do. I don't know this. And someone will say, well, you've been in the industry how long? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know it, or I know it differently, or I don't understand what's happening with that particular thing. So I think really being vulnerable enough to say, I need help is a sign of strength. And that's what's going to carry you through. And again, if we go back to women, and I think, you know, everybody talks about this statistic about men. They feel that if they're 35, I think it's around 35%, they have the qualifications, 35% of the qualifications for a job. They're like, yep, I'm going. And women feel like they have to be 90, 95. And you just can't, those things, we have to be able to be more prepared to be vulnerable and say, I don't know them all. I'll learn them all. If someone says to you, I think you're really talented and you could be this, trust them, but get the support, ask for the help, and don't think you have to know all the answers, because that's a lonely, hard, challenging place that's probably going to keep you from growing. That's such a stressful place to be.
Mm-hmm.
People want to help. Ask anybody. I have never had one mentor say no, other than one, and it's legit could not do it. So asking for help.
Yeah, that's lovely. I think that as a teacher, it's put me in a really interesting position, because it automatically takes the ask away. Like, you're in front of a room of people that need help. So it opens that conversation in a way where people are very receptive to information, and they're taking it in. You can literally see it. You can literally see them downloading and processing what it is that you're explaining when you're a teacher and you're explaining like at that level. But it's very interesting, because there's been a very, very small amount of times in my career when I've been explaining something and they can't get it. And you're right. It's usually something that is causing them the internal turmoil of, and in that case, it's usually time. It's usually they don't have the time that they need to process it, or they've put so much pressure on themselves they need to know it right now. And then they're not in the spot where they want to be. And so that's something that we're constantly working with students to make sure that that's number one on their list of the things that you need to learn, are to make sure that you know how to ask for help and when to ask for help. And even teaching with production, when we talk to producers, that's usually the thing that they say the most as well, that they wish they knew people needed help sooner than they actually go to them and ask for help. And in production, and when you're working on the clock, and in these heavy processes, that can probably lead to broken tools that might become expensive to fix, or just time, where in production time costs money. Thank you so much for talking about this, and Amanda, even being open about the competition that you've faced, because I think that that's something that's definitely out there. I was talking to Lackadaisy yesterday, and they actually said something very similar, where they don't like talking about the competition, because they recognize that people are competitive, but yet they were so open about their processes and like what it is that they're doing, and it's just not the path that they want to take. It's very interesting to see that competition at this level does exist, and like what it is that we're doing when we're making information so readily available to people.
Mhm.
Go find the ones that don't, that, you know, there are a lot of that want to support each other. So
Yeah,
we can,
exactly.
there's tons of people who want to support the independence and the, you know, hey, can you take a look at this animatic? Does it work? You know, like all the time people are wanting to help. So
Mhm. I mean, personally, I moved across Canada to come back to BC because it was so progressive, and it's just so thick in the culture here that it's safe. They're promoting safety first. Yeah, and I think that what you two ladies are doing are also kind of so enmeshed in that promotion of that safety net and that culture of like really giving people voices. For me, this is my way of putting something out there that promotes that positivity and the proactiveness that you two have shared. with everybody in your communities. And I think that's the root of this conversation.
That's one of the things we do in ACE is you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And you're going to be doing a lot of it, Lindsay. So
Love it.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today to talk to me. I really appreciate it. I know that my Discord community is going to get a lot out of this because they love making stuff, and that's all they want to do is make independent shorts and little things for the internet where their audiences are. And yeah, it means a lot. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Cool.
Hey,
And
I
yeah,
just-
sorry for the blips of not understanding a few questions. And
It's okay.
And I was going to say, Amanda, when I said your earrings were ridiculous, I meant ridiculously beautiful. I
Oh.
forgot that whole part. I'm like, oh my God, please don't think
No.
ridiculous. I'm like, I'm just staring at them the whole time you're talking.
I know.
It's so
They're
beautiful.
distracting, but in like the best way.
Thank you.
Gorgeous.
Mesmerizing. Yeah.
I'm like, wow. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Oh
because
yeah.
sometimes
No,
I'm like,
I
in my mind, I
sometimes
know.
sometimes questions can confuse me. So, and then I get stuck and I'm like, oh no, I don't understand. Yeah. So if there's any way to edit out moments like that, I would greatly appreciate it.
I
Yeah.
will, but I will honestly say that it made me feel less alone.
Yeah.
That helps.